Good evening, all, and welcome to Kal-bardr's Corner for this episode of Road to Retention. I am Baron Kal-bardr Gellir, Companion of the Meridian Cross, Companion of the Argent Comet, Companion of the Compostela, and Reaper, coming to you live from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridies. Now, I would like to thank Baroness Ramoot for letting me take over her show this week and wish her well on her travels and things she is away on this weekend. And I'd like to thank her or be mad at her because tonight's guest is going to be a handful, but of fun, of course. So for this episode, I would like to welcome the scapegoat of Artemesia, a fierce warrior with a motto, and just an all-around great guy, Duke Timmur Jochan. Good evening, Your Grace.
Well, hello, Cal. How are you?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Another incredible day in paradise. I could not complain at all.
That's it, man.
Entertaining weekend.
I would like to say, so hold on, before we get into that, if you will, for the viewers, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit who you are, where you're from, and why you're amazing, and then we'll get into some things.
I would never say amazing. Adequate. That's what we go for. We aim for adequate.
You are, in fact, adequate.
We go for adequate. Anything above adequate, then it's going to be work all the time. As you know, because, hey, we need something done. Let's talk to Cal. And, then next thing you know, you're in Artemesia, and out of nowhere, somebody starts fanboying all over you. Fangirling all over you. Thank you so much, Jermaine.
That's a thing, man. Anyways, about you, please.
All right. So my name's Timmur. I am Timmur Jochan from Artemesia. I've been in the society for roughly 32 years. So, about that. I started right around when I was 18. And I'm a member of the chivalry. I have I was one of Sean's squires, and I was probably his best and worst student, all wrapped into one. I'm also a member of the Order of the Fence. I've had the privilege of serving our kingdom both on the baronial throne and on the kingdom throne a few times. So that's been a blast to do. So yeah, that's it.
So you mentioned chivalry, you mentioned defense, and I hear there's a new one coming, maybe. So what happened this weekend, Timmur?
Sean's going to allow me to give me the bird, so to speak. Sean and Nisa both. She's part of her responsibility.
So for those who missed the joke there, so Timmur was offered the pelican this weekend, or rather told he'll be offered the pelican coming up soon. So congratulations for that. I think it is perfectly fitting, and I'm looking forward to seeing your ceremony for that.
Thank you. It's going to be entertaining and hopefully adequate.
I definitely feel that between you and Sean and the others of the household, you guys will perform an adequate ceremony. I have faith in that.
I have absolute faith in that. I'll be honest, I was really kind of surprised Sean and Nisa being family, literally family. And you always worry about that, favoritism type thing. So I was really surprised when they actually called me up and announced it in court. So right. And I was like, here we are. Let's just have some fun and some shenanigans going on. And next thing you know, he's giving me the finger and then the finger and everything else. So, yeah.
It was cool. So I saw your post earlier and I was like, oh, wait, I missed that because I didn't watch all of the court bits. I sort of caught pieces and parts. So while I was waiting for you to come on, I actually went back and watched it just so I knew what happened and caught the full thing. So, by the way, your procession was amazing. Your daughter getting carried in on a shield. That was really well done. So good job on that.
Oh, that was so much fun. As I mentioned earlier, during our second reign, I had Tiana was carried in on a dragon. And so for this one, we left our banners at home. It's like, crap, what? And Sherlock's like, hey, we got a shield, we can carry her. And I'm like, let's do it. And so we went, found a shield, carried her on in. So that was a blast.
It works, man. So so congratulations again. And I know it was a good day for you. And I heard you had a good day fighting as well. You didn't quite win out. Gabe, His Highness Gabe, did a pretty decent job of that. I saw.
He was beyond adequate this day. I would say he was good almost. But that's okay. That's okay because yesterday was day 1, season 1 for Gabe of Thrones.
I'm out. I'm done. Can't handle it. All right. Game of Thrones. That's what we're doing. We're doing Game of Thrones. All right, that's what we're doing. Anyways, now so okay, let's get into the show before we jabber on for another 20 minutes. So tonight's show is first of all, for those watching, if you will, while you're out there watching, please let us know you are there. Put your name, your kingdom, those sort of things over in the comments. Let us know you're watching, because I can't tell you're watching unless you actually let me. So let me know. So let us know who you are and where you're from in the comments, so we can say hi to you and things. And also feel free to put in questions, anything you have for the topic, for Timmur, any trash talk you want to throw in. It's welcome. We would love to see it. Feel free to just drop those, but do include your name and kingdom in there so we can properly credit you with the question. And apparently, Ivy loves you, Timmur.
Love you, Fia.
All right, so tonight's show is retention. This is my first one of these, my first one to dive into this, and I've got some questions from Ramut that she left me, but I know nothing of your background, so I want to start with that. So for you, what does retention mean? What is your sort of like approach to retention in the society?
So right now, in all honesty, it has changed, and the reason why it's changed is because of COVID. It's right. What retention was prior to COVID, what is totally different than the way I look at retention right now. Oh boy, we're almost serious. All right, so retention right now for me, it's not only retaining people who are, you know what, they're kind of on the fence, they're not sure if they want to stay or not. It's also, you have those, during the last year and a half of us having time off, we've had a lot of friends who've decided, and people, family members who've just decided, you know what, I'm going to find something else to occupy my time. And they found other things, other aspects in their life to occupy their time. So now it's a matter of not only retaining people who may or may not have been interested, but retaining older players who have now no longer are really enjoying as much because they found these other hobbies that they're really into and enjoy themselves. And it's like, okay, now we'd love to have you back. Please come back and be part of our dream again, because we really want you here. So retention is almost, in my personal opinion, it's even more important now than it was before, because not only are we trying to retain newer players or people who are, I'm not quite sure, but now we're trying to retain players who have been here for the game for so long, but in that year and a half off, found some other hobby that they've enjoyed and they love, and now trying to remind them of the dream that they were participated in and they were part of, and trying to pull them back. So retention has changed a lot for me as far as, what it is, because it's no longer the person XYZ. It's, my Squire brothers, former Baron and Baronesses, people who've given so much to this game, but yet in the year and a half, they've had that break, that moment for their soul, and they're enjoying the quiet, and now trying to get them to come back and play. So it's been a very interesting take with retention nowadays.
Right. I mean, it almost, I think, like all things in life, retention and recruitment are cyclical, right? There's always, so right now we're almost on a recruitment cycle because we're having to bring these people back. So it's not about keeping them here. It's about re-recruiting them. So we're having this back to the idea of how do you get them here, but the shininess is gone. The initial shiny is gone. So you're having to find the new shiny for them, I think.
Yeah. There's a good friend of mine that we had recently talked to, who was gone from the SCA for a while. He had a severe medical situation that went down. Essentially, he is like a legit cowboy. His horse bucked him off and trampled him. We're talking ICU, trampled him. So he was gone. I didn't think he was ever coming back. A few years ago, we were out in his neck of the woods, fighter practice, an event was happening. He came out, and he's like, man, I love this. I forgot how much I love this, and started coming back, started enjoying it again. And then COVID happened, and now he's back off. And he literally reached out to me. He's like, hey, I'm having a lapse of faith, because I was enjoying it, then it went away, then I'm enjoying it again, and now it's gone away. I feel like every time it's like, so where's the buy-in? And I had to remind this individual, and this goes out to a lot of people I've talked to, about the game that they've given to many people, myself included, that, it's like, hey, I understand that you are having that crisis of faith, but for me, you were one of the people that got me through it. And I can think of several people who are on that list. When I talk to people who are wavering, I don't want to be overly pushy because no one likes being overly pushy, but I like reminding them that in a lot of ways, and I can think of a lot of people who are enjoying their time away because of COVID, but in a lot of ways that, okay, remember you were like responsible for touching people, for bringing them out and showing them part of the dream, an aspect of the dream that they hold on to, and they are like, it's one of their solid memories. So please come back and share that joy again, because we're here for you and we'd like you to be here for us too. So it's really interesting that way.
I think actually I talked about this on an interview the other day. One of the things that it's harder for the older players, right? Whatever that older player looks like, whether it's a year in or 30 years in your case, it's hard to remember that part of it, that you're important to somebody, right? And I think that's especially as we start losing the appeal or losing the luster of the periods, losing the luster of the throne, losing the luster of that. You're that person, you're that royalty, in quotes here, to somebody. Mm-hmm. I think you forget that. So I think reminding people of that is really interesting approach. What I would be curious of is how are we, so what you're talking about is telling them what they are to someone else, mm-hmm. which is great. But what are we doing to help them maybe remember what the SCA gave to them and what it can continue to give to them, like where their fun is in it?
Interestingly enough, once again, going with conversations, because since I'd say midsummer, when the writing was on the wall that we are going to be able to come back to play and start participating again, it's been one of those things reminding people of that, like, hey, on the fighting side, how's your armor been? How, do we need to make any adjustments? Do we make any changes? Can you come out to fighter practice? Oh, you don't feel up to fighting? That's great. Can you help train? We have some new people that are now showing up. We'd love to have you there. With our kingdom, we've been very fortunate, and a lot of as far as our arts and sciences community is concerned, where they've had during COVID, they were the ones that stepped up. They're stepped up in so much way, doing online events, teaching classes. It's been crazy. Their Majesties Damon Veronique and Thea, Her Excellency Thea, did so much to make sure that our kingdom stayed engaged on the arts and sciences level and keeping things going that way. It was really crazy. But along those lines, now, at this point, everything that they've done, being able to display that, being able to show it now in person, it's been really interesting seeing that part come back alive. So going back to your question, what can we give them? Honestly, one of the best things we can give them is just the encouraging, letting them know that, hey, we're here for you as well. Some people just get tired and burned out. Well, let's try to reinvigorate them. What made it special for you in the first place? Oh, you like the fighting? You can't fight right now? Let's get you training and helping train people. You like the arts and sciences? Great. There are some people that are interested that didn't know that we even existed as a society. Let's start introducing them and getting them, finding out what drew them in the first place and trying to rekindle that fire. And once again, and you can test this, when you've been playing for so long, you get an idea of what's going on behind the curtains. And sometimes it's dark and ugly back there and you don't want to come back to it. There are other times where it's like, you know what? Despite some of the dark and ugly, there's some very, very beautiful parts of this, and I really miss that. And reminding people of that part of the dream that they originally fell in love with and come back. There's still a home for them here.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point. That's something that obviously, I've never sat at a throne and I've never sat in a peerage circle, so I have a different take on it than you or Sean or the others. Which, by the way, His Majesty says you are, of course, so dreamy, Timur. There you go. And of course, their Majesties are watching, so welcome, Your Majesties. Cheers to you. Appreciate you watching out there. So yeah, I think it does. It gets really dark behind that curtain, and I've even seen it from this side, right? Even just from seeing parts of it and knowing people that have dealt with that. I think it is difficult coming back even. So I took 10 years or 9.5 years off and came back. And of course, I came back with the same mindset. I knew all the same stuff. I knew where the dark spots were. But also, I came in with a new person. So my girlfriend Kisa came in with us, brand new to the game. So I had a really interesting approach to it because I was having her as her first time and me as my 100th time trying to find that balance, right? Trying to find the balance of me playing my game versus helping her get into it. And it took us a minute. It took us a minute to really find that where she needed to be, where I needed to be, so we could both be happy with it. And I realized that that's something that is important to look at for even older players, is it's the fun, that fun aspect. And I talked about this 100 times on other shows. Remembering that the SCA is supposed to be about fun and enjoying it is the biggest thing for people who have seen those dark spots. I know, especially for people who've sat Crown, that it's hard to remember to come back to that. So I think that's something that we really can focus on when we're not in those roles, is making sure those people are seeing the fun sides and not just the, bad banishments and ugly stuff.
Yeah, and it really is. And there's a lot of, for all the dark spots that we navigate through, there are those shining moments, those moments of brilliance when you're able to surprise your former squire, or when you simply show up to an event and someone runs out, with caveat, fully vaccinated because of the new rules and everything. You give them a big hug and say, "Hey, do you need a hand carrying stuff out?" And seeing the look of appreciation, being like, "I'm not alone anymore. I can be with people." That's kind of a solid selling point, because even though the good thing about COVID is that we've been able to enjoy this has brought us together. Technology. Now the interesting thing is now we reinstate the human touch, literally, and being able to help out, to pack some stuff down, reminding retinue how to be retinue. Just simple things on seeing someone struggling, unloading their vehicle, unloading it for them, stuff like that.
Right. And I think actually I'll be really interested to see over the next 6 months and year how some of our approach to this game changes, because we lost it. I mean, even though, a lot of us have been together virtually, and I met you and Sean and Nisa and so many others via this, this platform, and it's been amazing. But it's not the SCA. It's not what we all knew before. And I think coming back to it now, we're adjusting how we do some of that. We're still dealing with COVID stuff, and that's going to be there for a while probably. But I think it's changed the game for us, and how it's changed our appreciation. I think we appreciate it more than we did a year ago or 2 years ago. Now I think we started taking it for granted. So I think those of us who are still here are going to come at it differently. At least I hope so, and are going to approach it with a little more finesse, a little more grace than we may have had previously, to keep the game, to keep that fun that we all love, and keep the society, dream alive, because we realize it's really easy for us to lose it. Yeah.
And I absolutely agree. It's been interesting along those lines, seeing, when you come back to it, when you're starting to come back to it, the proprietor of Callantyre Trim, he was at Artemesia Crown this weekend. It was great to see him, give him a big hug. And I'm like, "How's it been?" And his exact words were, and this bodes well. He's like, "I have sold more today within the first 4 hours of this event than I did the first half of Great Western War. Your kingdom is parched for trim," which is cool, because that means that people are eager to get back in. They're eager to start making things and start doing things again. And that, it did a lot of things. One, travel for him was worth it. Two, there's still things to build and stuff. And now our populace as a whole is looking forward to creating pieces of art. And my daughter, her companion, it was the first time that she had been to an SEA event, and she does a lot of cosplay. And she's like, she bought a lot of trim. She's like, "I can't wait to make stuff, because when I do cosplays, it's a character, but this is going to be me. This is going to be me. That's the person. I'm going to be the hero." And I'm like, yeah, you are. Let's do this. Let's have some fun. And they are very enthusiastic about it. So that was kind of cool to see that spark on a brand new person, just right there, like, "Oh, yes." And once again, going back all the way back to Callantyre Trim, he had sold a lot. And now we are going to have, in a few months, we're going to have some really cool garb that's going to be rocking his trim. And I'm really excited to see that happen. That kind of growth can be really infectious.
Right. Well, and it's good to hear too that some of our merchants are still around, right? So one of the things I thought we were going to lose through COVID was losing a lot of the merchants, and we have, I'm sure, lost some. to either other games or just because of lack of income. So I'm glad to hear they're still around and they're doing well. Right, that's always nice to see, especially with because we're still at lower population counts. I think that's a thing to look at. We're still a half to a third to some number less in these events than we would have had 2 years ago.
Yeah.
All right. So you talked a little bit about the getting people back and sort of bringing people back in. I want to know, and you mentioned a little bit about fighting. So you're a fighter in two disciplines now, and what is your approach to retention specifically for fighters? What is your way to you got fighters that are around. So let's not we're talking about bringing people back. Let's talk about keeping people here, right? Our fighters are on the field that are just getting tired, right? What do you do as a peer to influence them to be happy again, to sort of stay around?
All right. So first, let's talk about getting started, getting and fighting. So hey, what conditions your armor in? So let's get past the armor condition, getting them back into it, getting them suited up, and going a few paces. This happens to everyone. Man, I'm frustrated. I'm not going anywhere. Well, and this my phrase is, it's like at a certain point in the local barony, I refer to it as inbred fighting. It's like you have Sean, and then you have Sir Gregor, and then you have His Grace Floki, and then all the way down, everyone in their pecking order, all the way down to the squires, and you don't see a lot of movement. So what do? Let's go to the local, the next barony up. Let's go to the next Shire's fighter practice. Let's get on the road and see where you're really at, because until you can fight me on the day all day long, but let's have you breathe. And right. So try and get people to travel a little bit. Not we're talking like hours and hours, but maybe an hour and a half, just to see the next area, the next group, and that way they can actually. Oh man, here I go, fighter practice, getting my butt kicked again. No, now let's figure it out. Then on the way home, so how was it? Oh well, this worked. Oh great, that worked. That's cool. Why did it work? What happened? And then just engaging them, and then going back home, and then working on the things that did work, and working on the things that didn't work, and then having them see that progress. A friend of mine who recently. Just before we got closed down, was elevated to the Order of Defense. He decided to pick up the hard suit field. And you know what? He's been training with us, doing Pell work with us for about 6 months steady, but he doesn't know where his real progress is. Right. Well, a few weeks ago, him and his wife, man, I love saying that because they just got recently married, but him and his wife went up north to a local event, and you know what? He had a blast. He had was an unbelted tourney, so he could participate in it, and he actually won, which kind of like blew my mind. It blew my mind so much that I'm like, I had to call Sean. I'm like, hey Sean, were there only like 2 people on the list? And he told me it was in the list. I'm like, oh, that's actually a good list. So like, good on you, Hago. And more important than us, good on you, Hago, but good on everyone else, because it wasn't just a small list. It was a lot of people, but Hagel's there to come home and figure out where he was at and felt a lot better about the work he had put in. Now, my squire brother, who is also part of that list, came away with that going, okay, I got to work on a couple things. And the things that he had to work with was more of a head game stuff. So now both Sean and I have stuff to work with Hago and LDB on and stuff like that. So it's actually been really, really kind of cool seeing that kind of progress. So going back to what do you do to encourage fighters is they got to see what kind of progress they're making. And it's really hard to see that progress when you stay in your pool. And sometimes just venturing out a little bit. It doesn't have to be huge, super far, like a big giant event like Crown, but a small event. Anything, just to get an idea of what's going on. And it's great to get that input from other fighters as well. Like, oh, wow, you're doing really great at this. Try this. Right. Cool. That's my take on that.
Yeah, no, I think travel is is a key thing to fighting, to finding your prowess or finding your sort of needs. And apparently we went 23 minutes before we started talking stick. So thank you, Your Majesty, for pointing that out. 23 minutes. There you go.
Some people's crown.
Right. So we had a question come in that I think is the same sort of idea. It's from Cyprian from Glen Albin. So before COVID, I was focusing on prowess and rapier training 3 times a week. Now I'm too emotionally and spiritually tired to have that same fire. I feel I need a pivot point, but maybe too tired to try something new. Any thoughts? So I think obviously, travel is the easy answer to that. It was sort of what we just talked about. But right now with COVID being still what it is, especially in sort of Meridian, Glen Albin areas where it's even less safe to travel in some of these spots. Do you have thoughts that don't include travel for something we can do to help encourage that on a more local level when we can't travel? Or thoughts on what he can do to maybe shift that up some?
So, so when traveling can be difficult or literally dangerous. We're not just talking road dangerous, but actually COVID dangerous. Some things that I've done to try to encourage people, once again, for people who do not know, Artemesia has a very large land base, but very small population base. Yeah. So when people started coming out with COVID and, trying to figure out how can we make practices work, the solution was fairly simple. It was, okay, you have your COVID group, and then inside that COVID group, if everyone's vaccinated or very comfortable for that, try doing some fighting. When we're trying to find that spark, that spark that has been taken away from us, and it was absolutely taken away from us, and try to regain that spark. Something that can help is just, what caused the spark in the first place? What was that initial? Was it just seeing the new garb? Was it seeing the fighters? When you're trying to fight, maybe not try and do it 3 times a week. Try doing some drills at least once a week. Start the routine over again. And it's hard. It's hard to start that routine, especially when we've become so comfortable just sitting here. But it has to start somewhere. That you have to have the courage to take that initial step and just try it, whether it's some simple drills, like with rapier, there are a lot of simple drills that I do, or calling up a couple friends and going, hey, are you vaccinated? Are you comfortable with us? Can we meet out in a park? Let's just do a few things, and starting small, absolutely small, because it's going to be a while before we're comfortable enough to go big. But when it comes down to it, finding that spark, remember what drove you to the passion in the first place. I practice 3 times a week. I ain't gonna lie, that's pretty intense, because I know some people that are lazy and are lucky to do practice once a month. It's like, oh yeah, I'm fat old Duke, but honestly, 3 times a week, kudos for you, because that's pretty intense. Try once again, get back on there and just try it once. Okay, I can't get over. I'm sorry, 3 times a week. That's really cool.
Yeah, that is intense.
That is really cool. When I was fighting like a seriously hungry squire, that's literally what I was doing, and it just about. Oh yeah, no, that's. I'm sorry, I can't get over that. That's just so cool. So no, get back to it. Try it once a week, just once. Call it people you're comfortable with. If it's a matter of being exposed to other individuals, or not just exposed because of COVID, but some of the negative that we talked about.
Right.
Just reaching out to those friends that you feel safe with, and being like, "Hey, let's start there. Let's just start there." So that'd be my suggestion.
Yeah. And so I'll add on to that. I think this actually, I was pondering this idea while you were talking there. The looking for retention as a whole, right? I know one of the things that the more seasoned players get is lack of a goal, right? Especially if you have people that start hitting peerages, they've achieved their path, and now it's the what next conversation happens. I think having a goal, so finding some sort of goal is helpful. So as a fighter, there are a ton of goals you could set for yourself. And as an artisan, you can have the same. As a service person, you can have the same. Sort of find your next goal, whether it be to fight in Crown List, to fight in some tournament, to finish some new project, to achieve some new thing, right? Find your new goal and put that somewhere. Actually mark it on the calendar so you have an actual achievable, measurable date. That for me is helpful because that gives me a new thing to look for. I'm not just training for nothing. If I was training for just training to train, I would be like, all right, this is stupid. I'm not going anywhere. There's nothing to do. And that's happened during COVID. There's been we have nothing coming. Why should I bother picking up a stick? I'll admit, I didn't pick up a stick through most of COVID because I knew I had no reason to. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. Now that I've got some goals, now I've got some sort of things coming, I'm much more willing to put in the time, not quite 3 days a week, but put in some time for training because there's just something there.
Yeah. No, along those lines with those goals, those steps that come along, like for me, What honestly kept me going during COVID, as far as like, hitting the Pell work, and as the group small, I said the group, but my COVID pod started getting smaller and smaller, because when someone became sick, they were off the pod. Is actually um, the fear of sucking. Like, I didn't want to come back and be like, oh, I remember when Timur was, adequate. Now he's subpar. So that was honestly one of my fears. Like, man, I don't want to come back, and since he's listening, I didn't want to come back and be like, hey, Timur, I remember you were good, and now I just smoked you. Thanks, Sean. Of course you smoked me. But yeah, it's like we're a fun and competitive family, but we poke the shit out of each other. So yeah, I had this fear of absolute sucking when I came back, and not being able to like have my cardio gone and everything gone. So I'm like, oh, it's got to start somewhere. And so fortunately, I have some individuals in my once again, my direct pod. Hago, I mentioned, Richard, Bigger Brand, who are all there, Jermaine, to help me grow and stay focused, because I'm responsible for them.
Right.
And I need to try to do everything I can to make sure that when they come back, they don't suck either. Oh, speaking of which.
You're welcome. Figured I'd give you that.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Speaking of fangirls, somebody's fangirling in the comments for you now. So I mentioned goals, and I keep looking off. By the way, maybe my notes, I'm looking off screen over here because I've got some of Ramut's questions up on the screen, and I'm sort of trying to find one. So I actually just found one about goals. So what is the technique that you use to support members in identifying, setting, and achieving short and long-term goals? So let's start a little bit about goals and things. So what can you do to help other people with goals?
So it's okay. Let's since we start talking about the fighting fields, let's stick with those two for a second, both on the rapier and the armored combatant field. Like, what's your end result? What are you looking to do? Do you want to become a member of the chivalry someday? Do you want to become an order of defense someday? Is that your goal? It might not be, because not everyone has that goal. And that's kudos to you if that's not your goal, but it might be. Okay, let's say it is. The goal one is peerage. Great. Let's work on step one. And what's step one? Well, compete in a tournament. Don't win, don't lose. Just compete. If it's a double limb, awesome. If it's a pooled list, great. Let's get some information. All right, you've competed. Okay, what's the second goal? How about one win? Just one. See how that goes, and let's aim for that. And I maybe because I have like itty bitty feet, which is surprising because I need something to balance my ego. But just taking those little steps at a time, and next thing you know, you're fighting your crown as an unbelt list, and you beat a guy that you've never beaten before, and you look down and you look at your knight and you're like, what do I do next? So goal number 4 is salute and walk off the field. So that it's those little things that you have the end result, and then once that to get that end result, you don't automatically get there. It does take all those baby steps, and step 1 is, for me, enter a tournament. You've obviously created your suit at this point. You're put in the time to practice a little bit. Now let's see how that tournament thing goes. The anxiety that just swells up. You're like, oh, it's a list. It's whatever it is. That's cool. It happens. It happens to all of us. And eventually, it gets a little bit more calm, and you can actually ride through that, and then figure out how to get those steps. And then going back home. So how'd you do today? Case in point, this happened recently. How'd you do at Crown? Well, and the cool thing is, it wasn't I lost all my fights. It was, I learned this from my fights today.
Right.
And I'm like, so was that your victory condition? And this individual was like, yeah, it was. I'm like, cool. So what was there a recurring thing? We did. All right, great. So now we know what to work on when we go home. This is good. So just, once again, smaller steps to reach that end result goal. And along the runs, like I said, not everyone's going to have that same drive. Not some people don't necessarily want that peerage, and that's cool. Other people don't want to sit on the throne. That's super cool. Whatever your goal is, awesome. Talk to your support network. And I say support network because it's very rarely just you and your mod or your member of the chivalry that's helping you out. It's a support network. Because, man, if you're just doing this one-on-one or one with one other person, that's rough. And kudos to you for doing it, but that's rough. You know, I was fortunate when I was growing up as a squire, where I had Sean as my knight, then I had Sir Gregory and His Grace Floki. I had those three to myself at home, and they are some amazing trainer knights. And I was fortunate and I was spoiled, but it wasn't just Sean alone; it was all of them.
Yeah, no, I think that you made a really great point there. The small steps is really what matters. It's really difficult to plan or to go. The goal is become peer, and you're at day one. That's a really lofty. It's a great goal, and that's where that's what you should be going for, and being or in His Majesty's words, just be knightly, right? Just be peer like, because they say peers are recognized, not made, and that's correct. So find the things that make you more towards that goal. So in this case, go fight in the tournament, go enter the ANS thing, teach a class, whatever your path is, do one little thing towards that path. And if you start doing those little things, you start becoming more and more peer-like, more and more knightly. I think that's an important step. And if you want to know about more about being a knight, go back and watch the What Makes a Knight series. It's a really great series for being peer-like. Little plug there. Just gonna plug my own show. I can do that, right? I can plug my own shows on my own channel. I can do that, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. I'll let Sean plug it in the comments. I'm sure he will. So I think goals is a great thing. I think that's a smart thing. I think, and what you said was great from a fighting perspective, especially. And it's really funny. And Sean and I talk about this a lot. It's funny how much fighter talk. If you take away the stick for a second, you're like, oh, this applies. The fighter talk, the things we talk about improving our fighting, applies to every discipline. You just have to sort of change the prowess in it or whatever. And it's some slight modification, but the sort of mentality is the same. I always find it interesting when I sort of stepping back and listening to the conversations that I've had about that. I'm like, okay, this is a peer like conversation, regardless of your prowess. So that's always fun.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. I honestly looking at. And once again, going back to what we talked about earlier during the COVID time, watching these artisans pop up and display their stuff that, oh, this is what I've been working for the last few months. This is what I've been doing. I took time to learn XYZ. And honestly, once again, with our kingdom, we owe a lot to the arts and sciences community for everything that they were willing to teach and share. And it was awesome. I heard some weird dude even taught something about a boxing tunic or something like that. I don't know, but overall, that guy. But overall, it was really, if anything, saw this kingdom through during the whole COVID time frame. It was our arts and sciences community and our service community for being able to do things like you do and take on this mantle. Because if not, the dream would have went away.
Right. It would have been severely diminished when it did return, as it is now. All right, let's talk a little bit about you, Timmur. You've been in for 32 years.
Yeah.
So just for the record, I was 1 when you started in the SCA. So just yes, I do it to Sean. If I'll do it to you too. So you're not quite. You haven't been a knight longer than I've been alive. You've at least been, so you don't have quite that. But
not quite that. That would be Sean.
in your 32 years, I'm sure you've had a bad day. I'm sure you've had a bad couple years. And what was talk about a time where you had a need, where you needed to be the one who was retained, and maybe how you got brought back.
That is a great question. When I need to be retained. So not quite in those phrases, but it's so, how do I put this? wow, there's like now like this scenario. What keeps me going? What keeps
Sure.
me going nowadays? Let's just go with that because it's hard to say. Honestly, it's gonna sound so insanely cheesy, but I've been there, and there have been some absolute shit times. Most of them, ironically, were on the throne when you had to make some hard choices.
Right.
But the brilliance, the brilliant, great times, and what when you know you're gonna make an unpopular decision, and that well, I can't say unpopular, but a decision that needs to be made, and you know that it's gonna upset some people and downright hurt some people. There are a couple things that keep me going. Number one, it's gonna sound so cheesy, the AOA. Watching that person's face when you give their AOA, fucking aces. It's just beautiful. It's like, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Everything you've done, you're willing to be part of this dream. Thank you. We appreciate you. That's really, really cool. And especially with our particular kingdom, we have you're here. We have a little ceremony that goes with it. For our crowns and our King's Champion and our Arts and Science Champion, they all have a collar of estate with the A's. And during the time of Basil and Renee, I do believe the first, they decided to make copies of those A's and give them when you received your AOA, and then also girded them with the dagger that they got to keep, because your love and we trust you to carry lifesteal in the presence of our crown. And that that little ceremony, I love the look on someone's face when they get their AOA. That's just really, really kind of cool. And the thing that keeps me going on both on the hard suit and the rapier field, it is watching and being able to train people. I enjoy it. It's really, really cool. It's really cool being able to, and it could be one small little nuance, one small little, hey, try this. Not necessarily, under my wing, you're my student, but just like, hey, that's working for you. That's cool. Why don't you just try this little thing a little bit more? The other thing that's honestly kept me through, and oh man, this is gonna sound so cheesy. I wish he wasn't here, but I have to say, my Squire brothers, my household,
Mm-hmm.
whenever the shit got bad on the throne, being able to lean on them and my consort, my queens, they've been essential to keeping me alive and afloat, and it's been great. I've been lucky to have that kind of support network.
I think that's an important thing across the board, right? Whether it's somebody on the throne or not. The SCA structure is sort of weird. We're based geographically, which is not a great way to actually build support systems. It's a good way for organization for a business, which is what we are, right? The SCA is a business first and foremost. It is a social club, but it is a business. So on a business, we're done geographically. But that doesn't always work for what we need as people. So building those support structures, whether it's a household, a peer relationship, a mercenary clan, whatever, finding that is the most important part for me of retention. Is having those families to lean on that are outside of the SCA structure, right? The ones that are not relying on the SCA structure. I think that makes a huge difference, because then when the SCA goes bad, whether it's a bad crown or a bad local group or whatever, you have that community, you have that other group to lean on. It makes a difference. As my wife, community is key.
Yeah, and in all honesty, you said it right there, whether it's a bad crown, a bad local group. Nice thing about the crowns, at the very most, they'll be gone in 6 months.
Right.
They might come back, they may not come back, but the family that you have, your local group, your whether it's a mercenary group, a royalist household, that group that you can actually fall back on, the same people that you can call up and say, hey, you know what, I need help literally unloading hay. or other things. It's actually really kind of cool to have that support structure in, and it's important because honestly, most of my friends that I now hang out with and talk to in the mundane world are all people I met through the SCA.
Right.
And it's just kind of bizarre that way.
It is an interesting thing, and my support structure has grown significantly since COVID, actually, which has been really great. It was weird coming out to Artemesia and meeting all of you for the first time and being very welcomed. I mean, you and Tierlock and Sean, I was family out there, and that was really weird for me. But it's like, I think that's an important thing. It's something we see a lot of in the SCA as a whole. Even if you're not part of that group, I'm not one of Sean's squires. I'm not one of your squires. I'm not one of the immediate family, so to speak. We embrace outside people. We bring people into those groups, because it's what we do. It's what I think what the SCA is built on. And that's something really cool. And something that you guys definitely do well as a whole, and something that we see, I'm hoping we see more and more of. And I know we're seeing more and more pockets of it, especially coming out of COVID. I'm seeing a lot more of that. And speaking of His Majesty, he brought up a fun point here. Apparently his dark day happened in the year 2000. Now I've heard part of that story, but and you were the one who helped bring him back. So I bring this up because I think this is an important thing. A sitting royal, right? Somebody who's been on the throne a couple dozen times now. It's not that many, but we all have our bad days. So you and you out there in the world are somebody's good day. I think that's an important thing to remember. Is all of us individually are somebody else's good day. So remember that. Remember to be that person for somebody, because you'll need it sometime too.
Yep. It's funny you should mention that, because I was talking to one of my favorite dirty mercs recently about the fact that he feels a little bit awkward because all these members of the chivalry are starting to take notice of him. He's like, I feel bad because I don't know who they are, and they're knowing who I am. I'm like, you know what? It's okay, because someday when you're sitting there with that baldric on, it's going to be your job to go out there and know that unbelt and be able to help that unbelt out. So it was kind of like it's going to happen. It's going to come around. Don't worry about it. It's coming for you.
Yep. Well, and I've had this conversation with royals. People who sat thrones are now sort of just like, man, whatever. I'm not. Don't call me your grace, whatever. And remember, that's an important part for somebody. That role, those people, whether it's a knight or a peer, you're that somebody to somebody, and those are important bits. And it may be something small like that, but it matters.
I agree totally. And honestly, there's always going to be a time and place. Like when you and I met, we're hanging out. Fart jokes and everything, and then court's about to go on. Put the little Lego popper on, and then that other part comes out. Because there's a time for it to be regal. There's a time for fart jokes, and then there's time to drink cup from your one-eyed monster. Thank you, Damon.
That's an amazing cup. I noticed that. I was going to ask. So actually, and I'll bring this up because I don't think I've talked about it yet. So you and I had a funny story at Coronation. I don't know if you realized it was funny as it was. So you were back behind the list table chatting, and I signed in for the list that day for Her Majesty's champion list. And you saw that I listed myself as Lord, and you're like, "Wait, you're only a Lord? That's weird." And we're very surprised by that. Now, this is very funny to me, considering like 30 minutes later, I get a court barony in court, and I'm like, "Damn it, Timmur, you did that, didn't you?" Like, so I feel like you jinxed me for that one. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And the second funny is you are now. I mentioned you earlier as the scapegoat of Artemesia, and I think it's right. Everybody in Artemesia blames you for everything, from what I noticed.
And that land does it too. Yeah, they got and it did come to Saeed.
That is now Meridies. I want you to know that. So now Meridies is blaming you, or at least I am, because when I walked out to MGT with the Madu, everybody's like, "Cal, you go to Artemesia for 1 week and you come back with that thing," and I was like, "It's Timmur's fault. Blame him." So
I'll take it.
There you go. And from Sean there, Artemesia, welcome home. Or apparently the other motto is "Don't lick your friends." I guess in Artemesia, that's a thing now. You can't lick your friends in Artemesia. I saw a bumper sticker for that. I was like, I don't appreciate that negativity.
I don't. I haven't seen that bumper sticker, so I deny it.
You do not exist. I like that.
I deny it.
I saw it. I was like, there's clearly a story to that bumper sticker that I missed. But anyways, some nice words from Jermaine. Thank you for this. Apparently, I've been a contributor to a lot of their good days, and I'm happy for that. This is, and Jermaine's my fangirl that I talk about now, who squeed at me in the tent, made my weekend right there.
It was so loud. It was so loud. Oh my Lord! I'm like, what the hell was that noise?
Yeah.
There's Jermaine. You're like, what? Shit! What just happened?
But I'm glad to see that. I'm happy to see it. That's why I keep doing these shows, because I'm happy to contribute to somebody's good day, whether I'm on the screen or not. All of these shows for me that have been that. Getting to participate with stuff in the Outlands and stuff in Artemesia, and stuff with Sean and Nisa and just all around has been amazing for me. And I'm happy that others are enjoying it. So thank you for that, Jermaine. All right, so we're nearing our hour. I'm going to do a little bit of show plugging, and then I wanted some final thoughts from you, Timmur. So chew on some final thoughts while I'm plugging shows.
All right.
All right, so coming up next on Kal-bardra's Corner, we have, so next Sunday, I will be joined on Coffee with Cal by Emperor Ionis Serpentis, and I hope to God I'm pronouncing his name right. So the current king of the East. Talk about sobriety in the SCA. I'm really looking forward to this show. I'll say that. I'll look forward to all my shows, but this is a topic that I don't actually know a lot about. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what His Majesty has to say about that. And getting to talk to somebody from the East now and another sitting royal is always a cool thing for me to bring royals on the show. So looking forward to that. And coming up the following week, we're taking a week off. So the following Sunday is Halloween weekend. We talked about doing a show. Actually, Ramut and I talked about doing a show that weekend. Couldn't quite work it out. Didn't want to stress it. I've got coronation that weekend here in Meridies, and also I dedicate myself to my parents in their yard for Halloween night. So we're just going to take the night off. So hang out, enjoy Halloween, or however you represent and celebrate Halloween. So do that, and we'll be back the following week with another episode of Coffee with Cal, which I don't have scheduled yet, but it's coming. So watch out for that. So first of all, Timmur, thank you for being on tonight. I was been looking forward to this conversation because I just love you as a person. I love everything you bring to the game. As Fia said, and I've never seen you as a royal, but I can believe this. You are a dynamic royal, and you're just a dynamic person. So I was looking forward to this conversation tonight. If you had to wrap up retention, the concept of retention in 10 words or less, what's your concept on that?
Only 10 words.
Yeah. Oh God! Stop clicking buttons, Maya.
What? Only 10?
I can't clicking buttons on my keyboard.
Remember that part of the dream. Seriously, that's just it. Remember that part of the dream. Remember what made it special for you, and make it special for someone else. Because in the end, that's really it.
There you go. I think that is a stellar. Remember the dream, right? Remember the dream. Remember why we're here. Remember the dream. I think that's well said. I won't even add to that. So, Timmur, thank you again. I appreciate you, and thank you all out there watching. You guys have been amazing tonight. Thank you for the comments. Sorry, my cat's clawing my arm over here. Timmur, do you have anything you want to plug, or anybody you want to talk to, or anybody you want to say hi to before we close out?
You know what? I've kind of said hi to everyone. So yeah, except for that hack Sean. Fia, love you. Jermaine, you're adequate. So yeah,
there you go.
It's been fun. And once again, I actually want to thank you and everyone else, Cal, who put on shows and kept our dream alive. Literally kept it alive, because without people like you who've stepped up to do this, we would be, like you said, it'd be a little bit harder, and our being able to connect with people. It's really kind of cool to be able to see events happening in other kingdoms, and you allow this to happen. You're allowing this, our insanely large world, to still exist and move forward. So thank you so much for doing that.
It has been truly my pleasure, and I'm so happy to see it happening, and I'm happy to help other. I was so happy to see on tier where they were crowned list last weekend. Refscape did an amazing job with that. So it's growing. The sort of idea of what we're doing is growing, and I'm happy to see that. So, but thank you for that, Your Grace. Yep. All right, everybody. I want you all to have an amazing week. And just it's tomorrow's Monday, but damn it, we're gonna have a Bones Day. Anybody on TikTok knows what I mean by that. So last but not least, check me out on Patreon, patreon.com/KK Productions. Support what we're doing here. Check us on Redbubble, KK Productions, or follow me on TikTok at Kal-bardr. Guys, you've been amazing. We appreciate your time. This has been Timmur and Cal in Kal-bardra's Corner. Have a good day, everybody.